I feel bad for anyone who has to put up with that in their household. They do have to learn to control your own thoughts and to make sure that that negativity doesn't stick with you. Like I've mentioned to other people, the doctors that I talked to are very surprised that we did not continue the cycle of abuse. We did not. In fact, my sister says, we spoiled them rotten. Now we've got these spoiled children. But all of our children have exceeded. They've got wonderful careers and done professional school. And if they did not do professional school, they're so kind to the people that they work with. They're compassionate. And no one got what we got. They have a hard time even fathoming what we went through. The oldest grandchild is 42, and I'm not so sure he read the book because he has a hard time looking at me or my sisters and brothers and saying, you went through that? He can't go there. His wife did, and she was scared to death to marry him. But after reading the book, I know she was shaking, but they have a hard time because we kept that lie, like your first question. We kept this respect. We did not push our mother away, even as adults. We included her in as much as we possibly could, and hoping that she'd be a good person and not be negative around the festivities of the house.
Did this book, when you really started to write, did you feel that effect that so many people say they feel? Did you feel cathartic, a catharsis, because you were able to actually put what happened down on paper and get it out of your head, so to speak? Did that happen
what helped
for you,
me,
Tracey?
Yes, great question. That's a great question because it's an important question. I didn't know if I would get that as I was writing. I had heard from other authors that it was like putting it in a drawer. What it helped was it enabled me to talk to my siblings who shared the same experiences that I did, of course, because we were in the same household. I was able to talk to them without boiling the conversation down to the abuse, the bruises and the beatings and the cussing. As soon as the light went on in our bedroom, and she would cuss. She would use the F word. You get your effing body out of that bed. And if we didn't, and we were sleepers, we had deep sleep, the air in the woods, and she'd pull us out. I was able to boil the conversations down with my siblings to just talking about that and not bringing up some horrible event. Prior to the book, we would start off our conversations, if I talked to Anna, I would say, Anna, we're not going to talk about Mom, right, or anything that happened in that house, right? And we'd agree. But by the end of it, we did. We couldn't, for some reason, we segued into that. And did it help us? I don't know. I would get off the phone and go, and have to go listen to Karen Carpenter music or something, because it came back, and you're like, I just want to keep it down. So the book helped me that I could think clear. The book also scared the daylights out of my friends. My closest friends were like, oh, no. One is a loan officer, and he's done refinances for my mother, and he says, I will never do a refinance again. And another woman would bowl with my mother, and she says, I am not bowling with her. Others don't want to read the book, and they're very critical of me for writing it. They shame me, and how could you do that to your mother? And the flip side is, how could she have done that to her children?
Exactly.
I weighed 46 pounds. Right. I weighed 46 pounds in the fourth grade. My brother, Robbie, weighed 22 pounds in kindergarten. We were tiny. How could you do that? And there's a chapter in the book where I talk about having my first child, where my mother strikes a baby that is 4 weeks old. How can you do that? And how can you read the book and be critical of me? Wouldn't you say, oh, this is awful, and, well, I had nice experiences with your mother. She was always nice to me, but this is awful. I want the listeners to think that if you see something going on, even in its smallest form, because there were little flickers with my mother, and even one woman became the first female judge in Maryland. She and I talked in chambers, and I said, did you know what was going on? And she said, I did. But your mother wouldn't stop, and I wanted to be friends. The older women all said, because of the gaiety of the house, the gaiety of the racing and the famous people coming by, no. They wanted to be part of that. But if they said anything about my mother, they'd be locked out. That was interesting, even as high as a Circuit Court of Maryland judge.
Wow.
But I knew it. Right. And a realtor knew it. One of the things I had to piece together from my memory bank was right before my grandmother died, and she was French and fun and little mink stoles, and her little dog and her Mustang had Libra on the license plate. She was just so fun. And we were in the D.C. Metro, and my mother was a couple seats away bitching about something, and I looked at my grandmother and said, how did that woman come from you? She goes, I don't know. And she said, Kathy, she said, Tracy, I want you to talk to me about some things. And I said, well, I have a question for you. I remember being bathed by my grandmother, and she would sing Lemon Tree very pretty, and we loved it. She just sang and in bubbles, and she saw the bruises and said, who did this? Well, how'd you get these things on your body? And there were 4 of us in the bathtub. And someone blurted out, our mother. And she marched herself down to the kitchen. My mother was making something at the stove, and she said, I have to talk to you. Now, my grandmother had just arrived from Friendship Airport, which is now BWI. We had just picked her up. And she said to my mother, I think you're abusing these children, and this must stop. And my mother said, you pack up your bags. I'm taking you back to the airport. She picked up my grandmother's suitcase, brought us all in the car. We're going, why is she going home? We loved her. She smelled beautiful, and she had perfumes, and I was so happy she slept in my bed because I got the bed next, and it smelled beautiful. And we were like, why is she going? My grandmother said that her daughter, my mother, would not talk to her for a year because she said, in my house, I do what I do, and you cannot criticize me. And my mother shunned my grandmother. So my grandmother said, I could not bring up the abuse again because I needed to be part of your family.
Tracy.
I needed to be part of you children.
Oh.
Right. So and then if you think, and someone was brave, I wish I had that person, an ambulance driver saw my mother attacking my brother when my brother got hit on a tricycle, a two-wheel bike. He was not supposed to be going fishing by the reservoir. He got hit by a car and ambulance, and there were no cell phones. Someone went to a neighbor and called, and an ambulance came, and my mother arrived on the scene and struck my brother and was going to, she kept saying, I'm going to kill him, because he defied her by going to the reservoir. The ambulance driver was a young white girl who called social services on a young athlete's wife, white Catholic woman. That's unheard of. You did not in the 60s call social services on a white woman in the largest house in the community who's married to an athlete. That person was brave. And, of course, social services came to her house. It was one of 2 times that I remember. But I remember that one really clearly. And when that group, 2 people came, she had pin-curled our hair and put a roast beef on the counter and made the house look gorgeous, more gorgeous than it could look, and brownies. You could smell brownies, and everything looked perfect, and we looked perfect, that the people were congratulating her when they left. Congratulating her. And right. So this was how it was treated back then. If you can't get a circuit court judge to see a little bit of fire there, a lot, because she was in and out of the house, they secreted it just as much as my mother did. And, of course, the nuns, I don't know how much they knew. They still know her. Some of them are still alive. And they thought that she was an excellent mother because she kept everything in order. Catholicism, everything must be in order, and you must obey, and you can't, get out of line by any means, or you're going to do 5,000 rosaries for the next 2 days. The same with my mother. It was perfect for her to do that. One thing that I look at that my mother did as far as our rearing, all 7 of us went through the same Catholic schools up until the 12th grade. She became a volunteer, and I swear, Suzanne, I think it was to watch us further and to make sure that any bruising or any crying that we might have in school, that it was the baton, it was we fell off the bike, the Labrador pulled us down too hard. She was there volunteering all those years so that it also would mask what was really going on in the house.
Tracey, this is just, wow. This is unbelievable, except it's believable because of everything that you have said. And I know that our listeners are captivated by the story. It's one of those stories that I think it's just so relevant to today because I think things like this are kept under wraps even today. And we all know that in the news, you'll see something will happen and some football player or basketball player or baseball player has knocked his wife around and they caught it on a camera somewhere and it's a big story for a day or two and then it goes away. People don't want to see it. Exactly what you said. Even people that really knew what was going on could not face it, even your grandmother, because your mother cut her off and she couldn't have that. I know that our listeners are so interested in this. So let's tell them where they can find the book. Now, let me give the title again. It's Jockey Daughter, and that's Jockey, exactly like you think it's spelled, daughter, : I do not have to be beaten to cross the finish line. Now, if you go to Amazon, and if you've never been to Amazon, it's really simple. You just put www.amazon in the search feature at the top of your computer. Sometimes you don't even have to click. It just goes there, and you get to that home page. And there's a big, long search box. Put in the title of the book by Tracey Tracey Cooper, Cooper. Even if you just put in Jockey Daughter by Tracey Cooper and click on it, it will come up. And the book is right there. It's so easy. You can buy it right there on that page. And if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see 2 little words on the right-hand side of the cover, the representation of the cover, and it says look inside. If you'll click on those 2 little words, the book will electronically open, and you can read a really terrific excerpt that will just bring you right into what Tracey has been telling you, right into this story, and you'll hear the very first story and the very first time that this happened to she and one of her sisters. Now, Tracey, everybody doesn't like to go to Amazon because they're the big boy on the block, and everybody, thinks, okay, who else could I get this from? Are there some other places that you know of that they could get a copy of the book?
Well, I have a wonderful girlfriend up in Saratoga Springs, New York, and she has a favorite bookstore there. And she told me, Tracey, I went in there and they ordered it for me, and it came within a couple of days, and I went back and picked it up. So any bookstore could order it for you. And also, you can go on my publisher's website, iuniverse.com, and there's a space for the book. You could just say Jockey Daughter, and it will show. I think there's another author named Tracey Cooper, but you'll see that those books are not connected at all to this. I've seen that name pop up a little bit. So they can go on iuniverse.com, and then if you feel like it, you can go on eBay. It's fair. This book is really popular out in England. I'm thinking, oh, no. People there are reading it, and there's reselling used books. And then I see brand new books also. And on Amazon, too, they sell used. You have to watch, be very careful. Do you want a used book, or do you want a brand new book without any creases or marks on it?